It's no secret by now that I am incredibly passionate about ending human trafficking and really all issues around preventing human trafficking. I mean, one of the things that I could talk about all day is if we want to really have a productive and honest conversation about what it's going to take to end human trafficking, we've got to start thinking about what we need to do on the front end. How do we keep people from falling into the trap of human trafficking or having to work in brothels and all of the issues around that? And as we know, one of the biggest factors in preventing somebody from falling into the trap of human trafficking is by providing a job, education, opportunity, sustainable economic opportunity. This is how we end human trafficking. Well, my guest today found herself in a really unique position in which she started a social enterprise that is caring for women escaping human trafficking and exploitation in East Asia.
Welcome to the Business with Purpose podcast. Welcome to the Business with Purpose podcast. Here's our host, Molly Stillman, our mom.
Welcome to the Business with Purpose podcast. I am your host, Molly Stillman of Still Being Molly, and this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, CEO, nonprofit director, community leader, or just an incredible person who is trying to make a positive impact, not only with their personal life, but also with their career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact wherever you are. My guest this week is Jenny McGee, the founder and director of Starfish Project, a social enterprise that cares for women escaping human trafficking and exploitation in East Asia. Jenny started her work by visiting brothels every week and building relationships with the women and girls who worked there. She found that many of them had either been tricked into working in these places or they came from incredibly desperate circumstances. Most had very little education and many could not read and write. So Jenny began Starfish Project to provide alternative employment and educational opportunities for these women and girls. Starfish Project began with 5 women working around a kitchen table and has grown to employ over 150 women since its beginnings. Today, Starfish Project has 2 women and children's shelters and reaches thousands of women every year through their outreach programs. 100% of their profits are reinvested into their social mission to restore hope to exploited women and girls. Without further ado, on to my conversation with Jenny. Jenny, I am really excited to have you on the show today for quite a few reasons. One, I have been a fan of Starfish Project for a long time, and you have been on my list of guests that I want to have on the show for years, like 4 years now. So this just feels like a long time coming. So I'm really happy to have you.
Wow. Well, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And then secondly, this is pretty much like a big milestone because for my listeners, I have mentioned before that I typically record in a recording studio in my husband's office. Well, you are the first guest that I am interviewing during COVID-19, the coronavirus. And so I am currently recording in my closet. So this just feels very different. And obviously, we are living in a really different time. And I had considered for a while, I was like, well, maybe I just won't do any interviews during the coronavirus. Maybe I'm just going to hold off. And then I was like, no, that's silly. We're just going to go with it. My listeners are awesome and are going to just, we're just rolling with the punches, right?
Yeah, that's great.
So I want you to start off by giving us the Jenny 101. That's what all my guests do. Just tell us who you are and kind of, where you're from and how you got to where you are today.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm from a small town in Indiana called Goshen, and but I moved to Asia about 18 years ago, and really I did a study abroad in college and just fell in love with this place. And so I moved here with my husband. We got married right out of college and ended up moving over to East Asia, and really just with a heart to serve. And so I started learning the language here, which was challenging. but not exactly knowing what I was going to do. I had no idea when I moved here 18 years ago that I would end up starting Starfish Project, but have really just made my life here. My 3 kids were all born here. I have 2 boys and a girl. And about 14 years ago, I started to see a lot of young women working on the streets and working in brothels, and just my heart went out to them. And actually, I had a friend who really wanted to start reaching out to these women and girls. And so she talked to me because I could speak the language. And so I kind of went along initially as a translator just to help her. And as I heard these girls' stories, it just broke my heart. And I always laughed because I was a terrible translator for her, because I would get so engrossed in their stories that I would forget to translate. And she would say, "What's going on?" I'd be like, just wait. But yeah, we just started visiting and connecting with the women we had met. And I was surprised as I started to get to know them. I found a lot of them were coming in from really poor villages in the countryside and into the cities looking for work. And because the value of girls in the countryside is still very low compared to the cities. And so a lot of the girls weren't getting education. They were sending back money so that their brothers could attend school. And that just really broke my heart. And I saw that as we visited these brothels, most of the women and girls there none of them wanted to be there. And most of them were really there for economic reasons and because of the value of girls in the countryside. And so out of that place of just making these connections and building those relationships, that's really where Starfish got started, as trying to meet the need for these women of providing new jobs and training for them, educational opportunities. And so, yeah, Starfish was really born out of that place. And we started really small with just 5 women working around a kitchen table, and it's just kept growing from there.
That's amazing. And like I said at the beginning, I mean, I've just been such a big fan of your work and obviously the jewelry for so long. And so for people that obviously you kind of alluded to it some, but for people that maybe have never heard of Starfish Project or aren't familiar with your work and the beautiful jewelry that you guys produce, just tell us a little bit about what you guys do today. Obviously, you've come a long way since you first started. So kind of what is Starfish Project? When somebody says like, what do you do? How do you answer that?
Yeah, so we're a social enterprise jewelry company, and we care for women escaping human trafficking. And we work to help them experience freedom, establish independence, and develop careers. And so that really looks like, the experience freedom part is we actually have teams, myself and some of my coworkers, we go into the brothels every week and visit the women who are working in the shops there and build relationships with them, whether that's in person, sometimes through social media apps, and just build connections. And when women have needs, they reach out to us, but we're also providing jobs for them. And so offering them a way out if they want to leave that place. And so the second part, establishing independence, we have 2 women and children's shelters where we can take women in who need a safe place to live. And then they can also start getting a safe job with health benefits. We have retirement benefits. And but beyond just having a job, I think the part that makes me most excited is we help women develop careers. And so at Starfish Project, all the way from, the woman who puts the beads on a string of a necklace, all the way through our graphic design, photography, accounting, we try to use all levels of the company to employ women coming out of human trafficking and exploitation and give them opportunities to do all different levels of jobs. And then they can take the skills that they learn at Starfish Project and take them into other companies and find employment elsewhere too, if they choose.
That's so important. And one of those aspects of the work of social enterprises that I love so much is the empowerment piece, and how, one of the things that you guys really focus on, like you said, is just equipping these amazing women with skills that, if they want to continue to work at Starfish Project, they can. But in a lot of ways, you are trying to work yourself out of a job, which is just such a unique position to be in.
Right. We had one woman, for example, who came in and was super creative. And so we gave her the opportunity to study graphic design and photographer. And she ended up becoming a really amazing photographer and graphic designer. And she ended up leaving Starfish and set up her own business online and runs a really successful little small business in her hometown. But then her leaving actually gave opportunity for other girls to step up and also step into photography and graphic design. And so now we have a small team of women who are studying that and improving all the time. So if you go onto our website, all the pictures you see are taken from women in our program. And so it's always hard to see people you poured into like move on, but I think it's also always opening space and opening doors for other women then to learn new skills as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the whole goal is like you see an opportunity and so much potential in an incredible young woman who, who just life has handed her really difficult circumstances. And it's about creating an opportunity for her to be able to, maybe learn a new skill or make a connection that she wouldn't have had otherwise. And be shown that there's an alternative. And like what you said when you were saying how like when you were speaking to a lot of these women and girls, I mean, some of them they're young. They are in these brothels. They're caught in the bonds of human trafficking, and they don't want to be there. This is not something that they woke up one day and said, "You know what I think I want to do today?" Like this is not a choice that they have had to make lightly. And so to provide an outlet, an alternative is so key. And that's why it's one of the things that I just love about the work that you do. And I also love that you incorporate them into every aspect of the business. And that's a unique aspect, I think, of what you guys do is a lot of social enterprises, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that maybe the artisans that they work with are simply just more on the side of creating the product. But then you guys also create opportunities for them to learn, the web portion and photography, graphic design, all that kind of stuff, and packaging and all those aspects of running the business. You really involve them, and that is just creating such a well-rounded opportunity for them to learn so many new things.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I love about Starfish is because the women who, learn different skills, they really become team members as a part of the greater Starfish Project team. And so, I go into the office every day and we have production happening, but then we also have girls working in accounting and graphic design. And so like all week, I've been working on this marketing project with girls who've gone through our program, but now they're doing the photography, they're doing the sourcing. And so I think from day one, when new girls enter the program, they see the potential for their future. I think we actually have very few women ever leave Starfish to go back to the brothels. And we didn't realize how unusual that was when we started. We were one of the earlier groups to start working in this space. But over time, I started looking at like statistics and found a lot of organizations had a ton of women would actually go back into the brothels. And we hadn't had that experience. And I think a big part is when they come in, they can see right away, this girl came from the same background as me, and now she's a photographer. Or this girl came from, she had very little education too, and now she's studying accounting. And I think from day one, even if they start, on the production line and they're just doing very simple tasks in the beginning, they can see the potential for their future. And so I think that also does a lot to bring them hope as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I would never have even really thought about that point about, just the kind of the, I don't know if recidivism rate is the word I want to use, but you know what I'm trying to get across. But yeah, that's really important. I'm curious, like, having lived in East Asia for 18 years and kind of moving there with, actually, I want to go back. What was it that initially drew you to East Asia from Goshen, Indiana? What was it that you just said, you know what, I think this is what I want to do is I want to move to East Asia?
Yeah, so I originally came to East Asia as part of a semester abroad program. I attended Bethel College in Indiana, and they had this program where you could go and study for a semester overseas. And I just fell in love with this place. Everybody was riding bicycles, and it was a very different city than it is today, much less modern. But I just fell in love with the place. And I think it's really a calling when I look back, people ask, why did you love this place so much? And I'm not exactly sure, but I just feel like some place you just have a burden for and a heart for. And so it really felt like a calling. And I was 19 when I first came on my semester abroad. It just opened my eyes to this whole other world that was just so completely different than anything I had experienced. And yeah, there my husband and I decided to move back.
That's amazing. And I love that, you referred to it as a calling. A lot of times when I speak with friends who have moved overseas and they're like, let me just tell you that this isn't something that I would have chosen. A lot of times, like I hear so often about how God just orchestrates so many things in such unique ways. And it's clear that he's called you there and he's placed you there. And it's just really amazing. The way that you are walking out that calling, even when I'm sure it's difficult.
Yeah, it's funny because people often think it must be a real challenge to be overseas, and there definitely are the challenges of, not seeing your parents as much, or my children not being with their grandparents. But there's also so many blessings. So I think it's just, what you feel called to. There's grace for that. And yeah, I've been really blessed. My kids go to school with kids from all over the world. And they grow up speaking 2 languages. And there's a lot of things they get to experience that are really quite amazing too.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, are you in a community that has a lot of kind of expats, or is it, do you just have people literally all over the world that live around you? I'm just kind of curious about kind of where you are, as far as like where you're, like you mentioned, your kids go to a school with people from all over the world. Is it like a specific school for kind of expats, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting. In this huge city, I actually live in a migrant village. And so my family is the only like foreign family in the village. So it's very interesting place. People here come in from all over the country to like find work in the city. And so it's pretty chaotic and crazy. Even my other friends from, who are from the city, they will come into our village and like, why do you live here? But most of the women we reach out to come from the migrant villages and are migrants themselves. They came into the city looking for work. And so we just felt like that was our community. Those were the people that we were working with every day. And so we wanted to share life together. So we live in this migrant village. And but then my children go to an international school where there's kids from all over the world who attend there. So it's kind of this interesting mix of cultures that we experience all the time.
Yeah, I just think that's amazing. I mean, obviously, I don't live overseas, but one of my favorite things that I love about like where we live in Durham is we just live in a really diverse area, and our entire neighborhood has people from all over. And, my kid's school has people from all over. And I just think I grew up outside of DC. So that is similar to kind of the childhood I had, where there's just I wasn't surrounded by people who look like me. You know what I mean? And I think that's just so important for, teaching our kids about other cultures, and just, having our kids grow up in a diverse environment is so important. I'm going to take a quick break from my conversation with Jenny to share with you the brand new Summer 2020 capsule collection from Seiko Designs. It has launched. This collection is the perfect expression of reclaiming our vision. Our minimalist floral design hide and seek is a celebration of the hidden gems in our midst every day. We've reimagined and elevated the classic Ugandan paper bead jewelry to add a delicate and unique flair to your summer wardrobe. And our tiger lily pieces are inspired by the boldness of their namesake, and each of our bags are as eco-friendly as they are beautiful. As you continue about your days, we hope this collection reminds you to look for the miracles and to be fearlessly, boldly, and unapologetically you. To shop this incredible collection, you can go to seikodesigns.com/Molly Stillman. That's SSEKO designs.com/Molly Stillman. Now back to my conversation with Jenny. Now, obviously we are, like I said, we're recording this in the middle of a global pandemic. And I'm just kind of curious, like, how have you guys, how have things been for you? How have you guys had to adjust and change? And I've just been really curious as to how my friends kind of in the ethical, the fair trade, small business world are handling things, and what have you guys done to kind of adapt and innovate throughout this?
Yeah, it's definitely been challenging for us, in particular because we're in Asia. We dealt with it very early on here, and so I feel like we're kind of in round two right now because our all of the women in our program dealt with it, and when it happened, it was the spring festival time, and so the women in our program had all gone back to their hometowns and to their villages. And so it's like the equivalent of it happening at Christmas time when everybody's back with your in-laws and in your hometowns. And so they were spread out all over the country. And then when it happened, it was really hard for everybody to come. A lot of people got stuck in their villages and couldn't return back to the branches where they work. And then we couldn't get any raw materials for a long time. So about 2 months, we were turning away orders because we couldn't fill them. And then just when we started to see the light at the end of the tunnel here, it really hit the US hard. And so now we can see our customers, and we have a team there in the States too, our US coworkers. They're all, experiencing it so heavily there. And so, and then of course now we're feeling it more on the sales side. And so it's definitely impacted our business a lot. And then just day-to-day life, I think here we had a lot of different regulations, and I had to do a full 14-day quarantine. They come and put a sign on my door that I'm fully in quarantine and can't go outside. And so it was pretty intense. And now we have little cards where you can come in and out of your neighborhoods, but it's affected our outreach, and it all the neighborhoods are blocked off. And so, so we can't go into other neighborhoods where the women are working in the brothels. It's hard to go in because we don't have the paperwork to get into those villages. And so it's definitely kept us on our toes. We've been trying to, the neighborhoods, like I said, I live in a migrant village. So even within my neighborhood, there's quite a few brothels. And so, so we've had packages, we've made little care packages and have taken it to the brothels that we could go to. But some of the women in there, we were surprised to see they had taken bike locks and locked themselves in because they were just terrified. And some of them, the bosses wanted to save money, and so they had no electricity, no heat. And so it was just hard to see the different conditions that people were in, and then just the fear, of course. And I think always the vulnerable people get hit the worst. And so, so just seeing them, in an extra state of vulnerability, I think is hard. But then also trying to be a light and a place of hope in that time. And I think also because we experienced the virus first, and through our social media and stuff, we've tried to be able to share what we learned from that, and hopefully be a bit of a place of hope for other people now, even in the States, experiencing all the challenges that this virus is bringing. I know it can be really depressing and discouraging, and so we've just tried to keep bringing hope into that place.
Wow. Now, a question, I'm the kind of person where if I will sometimes have a question and I'm this probably seems like a stupid question or maybe a silly question. But then I'm somebody else probably has it. So I always like to just ask it. So I hope this is okay to ask. So one of the things that as you were talking, I was thinking about this is as things are locked down, and you kind of shared a little bit about it, but as things are locked down, especially all over the world. I mean, one of the things I have thought about is how are, how are brothels affected? Because if people can't leave their houses, can people go to brothel? You know what I'm saying? This, it's an awkward question to think about, but all these places where you have people that are going and soliciting sex, or all, what does that look like during a global pandemic? I realize that is the most professional and well-versed question I've ever given in my life, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, well, here, I can't speak for other places, but here definitely we're shut down for a long time. And so that definitely left women in really vulnerable, they're always in vulnerable places, but I think, of course, no income is coming in. And so then it creates a whole other set of challenges. and then just communication, I think is extra difficult. But yeah, like I said, the bosses were turning off the electricity. And so girls were like using flashlights and stuff because the bosses themselves are trying to cut cost. And typically here girls live in the brothels, and they that's their whole place of being. And so they're deeply affected.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Man, I can't imagine. Can't imagine. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Is during times like this, it's the most vulnerable populations that are the greatest affected. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, yeah. I've thought a lot too about in our branch city where we work, there are a lot of young girls in the shops. And when we go out there, we'll regularly see 12-year-old girls in the brothels. And so just thinking about those 12-year-olds in such vulnerable places, I think is heartbreaking, especially during these kind of times.
Yeah. Mm, mm. Oh man, Jenny, thank you for the work that you do. And that all, just the amazing women that you work with. And, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I know that obviously we live in a time of an uncertainty right now. How has your faith kind of carried you personally through this time?
Yeah, I don't know how people get through these times without faith, really. Even for our team, though, I will say that I think in general, our faith as a team has brought us together and really given us hope. And even with my coworkers, I told them, please don't put your faith in me to fix all of our problems, because I can see, I mean, very quickly, you see how little you actually have control of. And so we've been being honest with them and real that I have so little control over the situation, but our God is big, and he has control over everything. And so I think for me, I think in this season too, what I filled my mind with and what I've taken the time to dwell on is really impacted how, my perception of things. I think really focusing on the word and keeping my mind focused on hopeful things, I think is really important during this time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've started and ended my day every single day with focusing on gratitude and starting my day in the word. And that has been so important for my mental health during this. But I agree. I'm like, I don't know how you get through something like this, or any trial or tragedy or tribulation that we go through, how you get through it without faith. The hope and the promise that we will be stronger on the other side, even though maybe it doesn't look like it right now.
Yeah.
So what is, in the future for Starfish Project? What is your hope and your prayer for Starfish Project over the next, you kind of look in the immediate future and even kind of down the road?
Yeah. Well, we've really been working on growing our business. I think I can see very clearly the clear correlation between the amount of jewelry we sell and the amount of people that we can help. So we've really been working hard to grow that business so that we can, the different job opportunities and be able to just help women get out of the brothels. And so we've really been trying to form larger partnerships with other retailers and trying to expand Starfish as far as we can take it. And so we're just excited about some of the partnerships we've made and growing our projects into, being able to sell as much jewelry as possible so we can help as many people as possible.
Absolutely. That's a great goal to have. Well, Jenny, before we go, I want to transition just a little bit to ask some just kind of fun, get to know you questions that I do at the end of all of my episodes. And it's one of my favorite parts of the show. So Jenny, are you ready for the get to know you round?
Sure.
Okay. So question number one, this is a very time specific question, but we've been talking about COVID and coronavirus and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to know, what are you learning about yourself during COVID-19?
That's a good question. Well, I think one of the big things is just how I like to be in control. And when you I just realized that's something I've always struggled with, and you feel like you've come so far, and all of a sudden in this situation, you realize, I still have a lot to learn. And one of my mentors early on, he told me to really pray about Starfish, just regularly saying, Lord, this is yours, do with it what you will. And that's been something I've been praying for a long time. And but during this season, I've had to speak that out a lot more.
Yes, yes. Oh man, I'm right there with you. Okay, question number 2. If you were a professional athlete, what would your walk up, your hype song be? Like when it was time for you to, step up to the plate, when it was time for you to, hit those free throws, like whatever whatever it is, what is your hype song?
That is a good question. I don't know why, but "We Will Rock You" is just in my head.
Yes, anything Queen.
And I just think it has such a good beat and, gets you pumped.
I like it. No, that's a great choice. That's a great choice. I love Queen, so I'm here for that. I love it. Okay, in 40 years, what do you think people will be nostalgic for?
Oh, that's a good one. Maybe like printed photos.
Oh, yeah.
Because even already, when my kids were little, I started making books, but then quickly you end up with all of it on your computer. And it's rare you actually like print the photos. At least I speak for myself. It's rare I print the photos. But for my 40th birthday, my mother gave me a photo album that she had like put together of my childhood. And it was so, especially because I live overseas, I didn't have a lot of stuff from my childhood. And that was just so meaningful for me that she had like taken this time to put it together.
I love that. That's a great one.
Yeah, it's like one of the possessions that means the most to me because, just so much like care went into it.
I love that. Yeah. I was actually talking with my husband about that the other day. It's just like, I have actually this I think it was like a toy chest that is really now just filled with all these photo albums, but it's all photo albums from like my parents' wedding and like my childhood, like my baby years and stuff. But I don't have anything like that from, I don't know, the past 20 years, 15, 20 years. So that's a great one. I love that. Okay. And then my last question is, what does it mean to you, Jenny, to run a business with purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I have the great fortune of being able to work side by side with women who are being transformed every day. We have women come in who are looking at the ground because they feel so much shame. They don't want to look you in the eye. And then a couple of years later, they're managing a team, or they're a great photographer, or they're making jewelry so quickly and training other girls how to do it. And I think for me, getting to work side by side with these women as partners in building a business, and then being able to watch them change and transform and myself learn so much and grow together with these women. I think for me, that's such an amazing privilege and, the essence of a business with purpose.
I love that. I love that. That really is the essence of a business with purpose. Jenny, this has been such a joy and a pleasure using technology, Zoom, which everybody is using right now, to talk, on basically opposite sides of the world. It's pretty incredible that during this time we can connect in this way. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for Starfish Project. Thank you for following God's call on your life. And thank you for being my guest today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
Absolutely. Okay, friend, I would love to know what you loved about this episode, or maybe something that you learned. If you do, let me know on social media. You can find me at Still Being Molly or at Business with Purpose Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And don't forget to use that hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you are a first-time listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring incredible entrepreneurs and business owners who are literally changing the world with their businesses. And if you are a regular listener of the show, thank you so much for tuning in week and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, or wherever you listen to podcasts and click that subscribe button. Clicking that subscribe button helps to make sure you never miss a new episode of the show. And while you're there, would you just take a moment to leave a review for me? Leaving a review really just helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is personally impacting you. As always, this show is produced by the amazing team at Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.
Now go do something good with purpose on purpose.